Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Well, welcome back to another weekly wrap up. I am so excited to be chatting with you guys. We are at week 51 of the year, just a few left. And next week there won't be a weekly wrap up because I will be home for Christmas, but there will be a final double week wrap up that will be out on the very last Sunday of the month. So yeah, there will be another double week wrap up coming up. But yeah, I'm very excited. I can't believe it's only the week before Christmas. I mean, it always comes so fast. And every year we say, oh, but it really feels fast. Yeah, it's fast. It comes up fast every year. And I think particularly since I haven't had to suffer through a lot of winter, there's the barest dusting of snow outside right now, and it's all supposed to melt again because it's going to warm up. So I ain't mad at it. I mean, some people might wish for more, but I've had enough tough winters in my 30 years of life that I'm going to take it as a blessing it is. Take it that when I drive home next week, there won't be ice, hopefully. It's going to be great. So yeah, I'm feeling very maroon today because my hair is fresh from last week, as well as wow, I just really outdid it today. I didn't even realize, but it's good. We're coordinated. So let's get into the business and then let's get into the books, okay? So first off, I have a new channel member to welcome, and actually today, the day I'm filming this, I'm having my mega channel member hangout. Normally it's only for fated friends, but the last month of the year I like to invite everyone, so that'll be great. And I have Cassandra Jones to welcome. Thank you so much, Cassandra. She joined at the romantic renegade level, which is awesome. I'm also really excited because YouTube just announced that we'll be able to gift memberships to people so they can kind of have a test run of something, which I think is kind of cool. So hopefully the next time I do a live show from the YouTube, because that's the thing, you have to do it from YouTube, be ready to hop onto one of those because I'm hopefully going to try to gift out some memberships. We'll see if it works. But anyway, thank you so much to Cassandra. Then I do have the final sale of the year happening for my Etsy because I'm going to have it closed while I'm gone for Christmas and then hopefully reopen in the new year. I probably won't have some new designs immediately, but we'll see. So I have a 30% off sale going today. That is literally the biggest sale that I can do to still make a little money on them. And I do have a restock of some of the Beauty and the Beast sleeves. These have been out of stock for a while, so I have them in both indie and Kindle size. And then, of course, we have some of the winter patterns still. I had a restock of some of these pretty pine cone ones. And then there's still a chance to get a few of these pot holder gift sets, either for yourself or a loved one. I think I have 8 left. And if you order them today, Sunday, the day you're watching this, I will be sending out all of them on Monday, and hopefully with the type of shipping I use, they could be there by Friday. I can't promise it because really the last day the UPS said was Friday, but the way that my shipping's been going, I think it should make it. But either way, maybe they're just for you. Maybe you want to tell your husband, your friend that this is what you want and send them a link and then it'll be there. Okay, let us go ahead and get into these books. So I know I say this quite a bit. Well, I often say it's going to be super long. This will probably be a bit of a quicker one. We'll see what the runtime actually means because this was in the midst of my epic reread that I do every year. So a lot of these books I've talked about multiple times, so I won't go into deep detail about them because if they're a 6-star book and I'm rereading it, I've already talked about it ad nauseum, so we won't spend too much time in that. For real, I mean it, because I've talked about the books too much. Also, because I'm trying to pre-film, I need to film 3 or 4 videos today, so I can't talk for an hour in each one, right? So, the first book that I ended up reading, though, was actually a fan fiction. I have been, in December, it's just now become the cozy thing for me to read some fan fiction. So, this one was called Benefits with Friends, and the fic author was In Dreams. Now, one other thing, if you're someone who loves fan fiction, I put up a list of my top 10 fan fictions that I read this year. That video bombed. I knew it was going to, though, because not all of you like fan fiction. But if you're one of my fanfic girlies or boys out there, check out that video, please, and go give it some love. Check it out. I have a whole playlist of fan fiction, and people are always asking for recs, but then when I make the video, I know it's not going to do that well because not everyone's here for fan fiction. But if you are, I made a video just for you. Go check that out. But this one, Friends or Benefits with Friends, is pretty much how it sounds. It's a friends with benefits Dramini thing. So it starts with them like in basically this casual sexual relationship, and it's at the point where they're both they both want something more, but they don't think the other one does. So it's that type of miscommunication, but it's an okay one. And so they've had a lot of good sexy times together, and now they need to decide if they want something more out of it or not. I gave this one 4 stars. It was a 3.5 on the spice scale, and it did have a little bit of like voyeurism in it, but it wasn't too crazy kinky or anything. Then I had my reread of Hyacinth by Minerva Spencer / SM La Violette. I still really enjoyed this one. This was one of my 6-star rereads, right? But this one I did end up bringing down to a 5-star. So that is something that I leave freedom for. I still really enjoyed this book. But when I do the rereads, the first thing I'm really looking at is, does it still hit me the same way that it did the first time? Because if it doesn't, if it doesn't, that's an easy way to start weeding it out, right? So this is still one I'm always going to suggest. This is a girl disguising as a boy to play cards and like earn money for her family so that she can actually feel not guilty when she like leaves, because she's a part of this family of 5 girls and 1 boy. Their parents are pretty awful to all of them, and Hyacinth is looking for a chance to kind of break free of all of that, right? And yeah, I really like her. I really love the hero in this one. He's the big star in this for me, because this is a hero, Sylvester, who he really doesn't, you know, he's rich, he's a duke, he has an heir who is his cousin, but they very much hate each other. He's a widower, and he doesn't have many plans to like get remarried, although he does want to, so that his cousin isn't his heir, because again, he doesn't really care for his cousin. And he starts playing cards with this boy man who turns out to be a woman, and they end up falling for each other. But he falls first and falls hardest, because Hyacinth is a bit of like, I will call her neurodivergent for sure, and she doesn't believe in love. She doesn't think she can love, you know, that claptrap. But it was nice to see like a reversal. Usually it's the man who doesn't believe in love, and he very much falls head over heels for her. They also become like friends with benefits, because she actually isn't a virgin, and she has actually experimented sexually with a friend before. He had this book of like, it sounded like it was kind of like the Kama Sutra or something, and they tried out a lot of sexy things together. And so one of the things Sylvester's been very ashamed of is his sexual appetites. And so when he finds someone who doesn't shame him for wanting the things that he does, it's very good. So yeah, it was still excellent. I just think now that I had like read it before, it didn't bring up the same emotions for me that it had before. All right, then there was another fan fiction, and this one, y'all, this one was fun. It's called Consequences by Dark Cloud 190, and this was a Mafia AU, okay? AU means alternative universe. So this isn't set in a magical world. It's set like in the real world, and Hermione is a banker and actually just getting out of a abusive relationship with Ron. Like the very beginning of this is her in an abusive relationship with him, and he's stalking her. She's had to get a restraining order against him. And Draco, he is a mafia man, but he's also, you know, with that, he's a businessman, and his investments are with the bank that Hermione works for. He has a lot of legitimate stuff as well. And so they meet like monthly to go over his like all that. And he has grown a little bit attached to her, but she doesn't realize this until she comes in he comes to meet her one day, like out of schedule. And she had come to work with a couple of bruises, and he sees them and he's like, who the fuck did that to you? And she's kind of like, I mean, it's none of your business. I'm fine. You know, the classic, like, domestic abuse person of, like, I hit it on a doorknob type thing. And he's like, you're lying to me and I'm going to figure it out. And when he finds out it's Ron, which this all happens really quickly, he brutally kills him for her. And now she knows that he's a mafia guy. And now that she knows he knows, he really just puts all of his cards in. He puts all of his cards in on the table and really goes for her because he's pretty obsessed with her and wants her. One of my favorite things of this is this very much has like Billionaire vibes too, because for their first like official date, he said he's going to take her out for Italian, but what does he do? He flies her to Italy for that, to take her to a real Italian restaurant. Just that use of opulent wealth just does something for me. Okay, it just does every now and then. I am wowed by it now and then, I will admit. But I did give this one 4 stars because it got a little bit convoluted at the end, and there was, you know, there had to be a villain thrown in who tries to take her from him and threatens her with like sex trafficking to get back at him or something like that. And I'm just kind of like, nah, this story didn't really need that. But it was still great. And if you love Mafia Romance and you would like to try a fanfic, maybe you haven't before, this one definitely works because it really is a Mafia Romance, but Draco and Hermione are the main characters, and like Theo and Blaze are 2 of his made men, and like Luna is his cousin in this one. Like there's lots of really cute crossovers that will work for you, okay? So links to all the books I talk about, including links to where you can read the fan fictions, are always in my description, so check that out. All right, next was my reread of You and Me, and I can happily tell you that this one absolutely hit me just as hard as the first time. I still cried in all the same places, and I still felt such empathy and love for Luke. So Luke is a widowed single father. His son is in high school. His wife died the year before. She died in a way that he's kind of keeping a secret from his son. And him and his son have just like, they're very separated from each other. And Luke is devastated by this. He's more devastated by the space between him and his son than he is in the loss of his wife, because him and his wife, they had a lot of problems going on. And Luke decides to take one last stab at it. Now, he received some mail that actually his son had like thrown it away, and he finds that it was from the Booster Club, and it was meant for his wife, inviting her to be a part of the Boosters. And Luke was like, he wanted to go tell them that the wife is dead, but also once he gets there, he decides to volunteer. And he doesn't know how his son is going to feel about this. Thinks it might be kind of awkward, but he's like, you know what? Soon my son is going to graduate and he's going to be gone and I'm going to miss my chance. So this is actually a slow burn romance between Luke and his son's best friend's dad, Landon. And Landon is gay and out about it. Luke has always thought he was straight, but he's also never had anyone question. Like, he's never questioned his sexuality before now. And he definitely feels more on the asexual scale because he falls for Landon's soul completely. That's what he falls for. And like 2 missing puzzle pieces is You and Me. So this is absolutely beautiful because it is also like a found family thing, everything. So this stayed 6 stars. It was lovely. It's a 2.5 on my spice scale. It does have trigger warnings for drugs and death of a spouse. And there's a lot of painful father-son angst in here, but it's worth it. It's beautiful. All right, then I read Wed to Jack Frost by Lila Faye. Oh my word, I wrote Lila Frost when I wrote the name in here. So I've been reading a few of these like monster temple, like Wed to the Monster books, but I've been trying to just read the ones by Lila Faye. So I've read, what was the first one? Wed to the Ice Giant. And I read Wed to the Minotaur, but I did not like that one. That one wasn't by Lila Faye. I read Wed to the Licked in October, and I loved that one. And then this one was fun. I liked this one. So in this one, we have the case of Jack Frost signed up for an arranged marriage like as a joke, and then he forgot to take his name back out. And so they call him or message him with the fact that they found his fated mate. And this woman, her name is Scarlett, she really, really needs this marriage, like most of the human women do. They sign up for this not necessarily because they love monsters, but because they need the money that comes from doing this. And her family is in a lot of debt after her father died, so she signs up for this. Now, when Jack shows up for the wedding, he is there to say that he's not going to go through with it. And Scarlett is like, well, yes, you are. And he's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, yes, you are, you stupid Iceman. Like, I need this. So what it turns out is she's a bit of a dom and doesn't even know it, but she is. She's a very, like, dominant personality. And Jack, he can't help but obey her when she tells him he has to marry her. So he does, and he brings her home to his family, and the family absolutely loves her right away. They're like, oh my gosh, we're so happy you're here. We're so happy you're marrying our son. He needed to get married. Like, oh my gosh. And then when they finally have, like, bedroom time, he shares some of his desires with her of, like, I want you to boss me around. Like, when you, like, degraded me and called me, like, stupid and stuff, I'm really into it. So this has some BDSM in it, and it has her, like, learning the things he likes so that they can, you know, vibe together, as it were. So this was a great time. These are all pretty quick books, and you get some monster spice in it. So this one was 4 on the spice scale. Or I mean, yeah, 4 on the spice scale, 4 on the star scale for me. And this one has some femdom, BDSM. There's pegging, tail play, degradation. It's pretty light degradation, but it's there. It's great. Okay, then I read 2 absolute filth. Okay, I'm just telling you, they are sold to be absolute filth, but I decided to give them a go, and, like, I don't necessarily regret it because they were only 50 pages each, but I don't know if I'll read more of them. So Jenica Snow started an erotic taboo, like, pen name, so it's J Snow, and she's going to be writing, like, purely taboo things that you can only buy from her website or from, like, another site that sells ebooks. And so both of the ones that I read have incest. So just maybe skip over me talking about these if you don't want to hear about them. But the first one is called Their Dirty Girl, and it's an MMF father, son, and daughter quickie. And like I said, these are like 50 pages. So the whole thing is smut. This is erotic taboo thing. And the father, Landon, catches his daughter pleasuring herself, and she's, like, saying his name while she does it. And so he catches her, and she, like, basically throws herself at her dad, and there we are. And then the brother catches them both doing it, and then he joins in as well. So yeah, that happens. It's there. I gave this 2.5 stars. It was what I expected, but it also was, I don't know. I know this sounds bad, but I've read books with incest before. I've made a video about familial love before. And there's just more, quote unquote, tasteful ways to do it where there's, like, angst involved and all that. This one was only for the taboo thrill. Like, lots of calling him daddy and calling him brother, like, saying that over and over and over again is the kink of, like, I'm calling you my father while we're doing it, like, over and over again. And I don't know. So yeah, incest. And then there's a lot of kinky things in it too. You can find the list for it. Then I read Hes So Rough, which is an uncle and niece one. Her uncle ends up staying with her while her family is, like, gone for, I can't remember if they're just gone for the night. He's staying with the family for a few days, and then the parents, I think, like, go out for dinner or something, and he makes his move on his niece. So, also 2.5, also completely taboo. So there you go. You know, I don't judge myself for what I read, but with those ones, it was more so that they were such bad taboo books. You know what I mean? Like, you can write taboo and it'd still be, like, sexy. And these ones I was like, well, I'm just going to read these and review them. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, Jenica Snow already really pushes the boundary. Anyway, she writes almost taboo stuff. You know, she's the one who wrote the monster romances where, like, he stays a monster and, like, a beast. It's like a wolf fucking the girl, you know? So it's like, it's not like she hasn't written almost taboo stuff. And there's ones that I actually really like. And then these were just kind of like, she just made them the taboo and threw them out there. And I was like, okay, respect. All right, whatever you're going to do. Okay, then we had the reread of Return to Monte Carlo by Kate C. Wells. And this is another one that went down to 5 for me after rereading it. And I kind of knew that it would. This was one of the books that was in my book box, the quarterly book box for my patrons. And so I had already kind of revisited some of it. And when I revisited it this time too. It just, again, this one didn't hold quite the same emotional punch once I knew where it was going, because there's a lot of angst in this book for it being like so short, because it's a marriage in trouble. Takes place in the 80s, and it's actually, this couple's been married for a year. She was a shop girl who married a billionaire, and he really kind of bucked his family tradition to marry this girl. Like, there was just something about her that drew him in, and let's be real, it was the lust. He lusted for her. She drew him in with her pretty self, and he just wanted her for himself, because so much of what he does is for his family and for duty, and so he wanted her. But he also is afraid of like showing how much he cares about her, so he kept her at a lot of a distance, and this just puts, like, it just makes her feel worthless, like she was only an object. And his family like lives with them. They live in this big home, and she gets kind of mistreated by his family. So when it's their first anniversary and he's late for this beautiful dinner she planned, and her family's all sitting at the table judging her for having put this together, and he's not even there, she kind of has a little bit of a break. And I wouldn't say she throws a tantrum. I think she finally stands up for herself, and that gets put out as like she's having a tantrum, when it's like, no, she just isn't going to let you walk all over her anymore. And so she ends up leaving him. And once she leaves him, she discovers that she's pregnant. And she does take a little while to tell him, because she's just processing it all. But once she reaches out to him, he comes and makes her come back, because he's like, I own your family. I pay for everything that they have. If you don't come back, I'm going to cut it off. So she goes back, and then they have to try to work it out. And yeah, their big thing between them two is like, he also feels very guilty for the type of sexual play that they have. They do a lot of like CNC together, which is consensual non-consent. And she has the same kinks as him, but he feels like he ruined her. He feels like he forced that on her because she was a virgin, but like she's always liked what they did. And if they're going to make it work, she's like, you need to stop letting your family walk all over me, and you need to stop feeling guilty about what we do, because it makes me feel like a whore if you leave ashamed after we do it, which is a very powerful part of the book. So this is a quick one. Again, it's very angsty, it's very good. It's still 5 stars for me. Like, I was still moved by the story, but comparing it as well to like other 6-star books I was reading, it doesn't hit quite as hard. But this is still one I'm always going to recommend. I really do love this one. Obviously, it was in my favorites. So yeah, this one is a 5-star read now. It's a 4 on the spice scale. It has a CNC, rough sex. There's even some spit play in this one. And it does have kind of a kidnapping, so be prepared for that. Next up was my reread of Forever Your Rogue. And yes, this one was still a 6-star. And this one's definitely in competition with like 3 others for the top spot. I do not know where it's going to fall yet. I really don't. But rereading this one, fully annotating this one, gosh, I just love Nate and Cora so much. This is another book I've talked about this so much. So there isn't too much more to like say this time around. But this is a single mom. She has 2 little kids. They're both under 5. And her dead husband's relatives are trying to take control of her children, and in doing so, they're taking charge of the heir, which her son is the heir, and control of his money. Her brother, Gavin, is a lawyer, and they come up with this plan to help him be able to create a case to go before the magistrate and get him put in charge as the co-guardian with her children, because that's usually how it would have went. But her husband had like given her a final fuck you. He was just a bad husband, a horrible dude. We don't like him. He's annoying. And he didn't even know his own children's like birthdays, like that kind of guy. It should have been her brother that was her like co-guardian. And the plan is to come up with a case why they should be that. But they need some time to postpone it to keep these relatives from getting a hold of her children. And so they decide that if it looked like she was going to be getting married again and have a partner to be with, to, you know, be the kid's father, that would get them off their back. But of course, the guardians were just using her getting remarried as like a ruse, because they didn't think that she would. So yeah, she's in a tight spot. We'll just say that for sure. So she calls upon Nate Travers, who is her friend's older brother. So Tabby is Nate's younger sister. And he actually owes her a favor because she bailed him out of some trouble a few years ago. He was in a bit of a gambling debt. He's not like horribly a debtor, but like he does cause himself some problems, we'll say for sure. And Cora had helped him out. And so she's the one, like she calls in his debt basically and says, I need you to help me for a fortnight. I need you to pretend to be my fiance while they come and stay with us, and we're going to prove that we're going to be good. So Nate very reluctantly agrees, and he's just like, oh, I don't want anything to do with this. But once he gets there and he meets these adorable babies, he's a goner. He's an absolute goner, and it is lovely. I won't say otherwise. It's lovely. And he just is forced to grow in a way that he never expected to. And the connection that he forms not only with Cora but with the kids it's perfect. So yeah, this book rated very highly on my rating scale, like my little quiz I do. So we'll see where it ends up. So this one is still a 6-star read. It's a 3 on the spice scale, and everyone needs to read that book. Like, y'all, it's so good. All right. And then another 6-star reread was Worth the Fall by Claudia Connor. And I gotta tell y'all, it's very clear to me that I have a favorite trope for the year of 2023, because 4 of the books on my list are single mothers, and 3 of them are single pregnant mothers, and Worth the Fall is one of those that I absolutely adore. So this is one, I wish there was physical books of this. If you have by chance ever seen one or have one, you know, let me know if you'd be willing to like trade for it or send it my way, because this is out of print. I even reached out to the author earlier this year to ask if she knew of any place that sold hers, and no, because the publisher put it out of print and she doesn't own the rights to it at all, and she probably won't get them back. But I did listen to the audiobook this time. This was a book that had been recommended by a viewer earlier this year, and I'm so glad they did, because I probably wouldn't have read this one if it hadn't been recommended that way. But yeah, in this one we have Abby, and she is on vacation with her 4 little kids. They're all under 6, and she's pregnant, like 6-7 months pregnant with another one. Her husband died like 6 months ago, but like she hadn't even told him she was pregnant yet. Things weren't going great with her and her husband. Like, he was kind of a cheater. He wasn't treating her well. But Abby's someone who's been very lonely in her life. Her parents died when she was very young. She's been through foster care. She's someone who people have always been leaving her behind. But now she finally has like a family. Like, her kids are her family. They're part of her. They're never going to leave her. They love her. But she is on her own, and she's lonely in that way. And Matt happens to be on vacation there as well. It's a week off of work for him, and his cousin ended up dragging him to this resort. And he meets Abby and these children, and he is just so drawn to them. He can't stay away. And after the week that they're there on vacation, he decides he's not going to be done with her. So even though his work is always taking him away, he's an active Navy SEAL. He needs to go on missions pretty frequently. And that's really tough for Abby, who is completely gone for him, but he's going to be leaving her regularly to do his work. And so this person who has abandonment issues, and again, very like reasonable abandonment issues, you know, it's not like this is an irrational feeling or someone who's scared of commitment. Like, she has been left many times, and you know, it's very hard for her to trust anyone because she's been disappointed so many times. And even though she knows his job is important and that he's a good man, it's still very hard for her to trust that, you know? So it's a tough one. This one absolutely stayed a 6-star as well. I still bawled while reading this. Like, it just rips my heart out. These kids, the kids are so precious, y'all. They're so great. And Matt is just so innately good with them. It's like those kids were waiting at that beach for him to find them, because he was meant to be their dad. He was meant to be their dad, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And they have a better father in him than they ever would have had in their real dad, because he was already like on his way out the door. Abby probably would have ended up as a single mom anyway. So yeah, it's lovely. And the found family aspect of Matt's family, completely enveloping Abby in and just loving all the kids right away, like that is just so heartwarming about this. It's great. So yeah, that is a 6-star still for this one as well. This one is a 2 on the spice scale. This one is not much about the sexy times between them, even though they are like completely gone for each other. It's so much about the emotional connection in this one. It is fantastic. So yeah, love it. Love it. All right. And then the last book that I read, see, look at us. Look at how great time we're doing. What is this? I just finished When She Loves by Gabrielle Sands. This is the 4th and final book in the Fallen series, which I only discovered last month, and the last one is here. There is going to be a spin-off series about Nero, and if you've read this book, you know where Nero like ends up at the end of this, so I'm very interested. There's going to be a duet called Fallen God that's coming next year. Very much looking forward to that. But so this one, you do need to read these books in order to get to this one, because all the setup comes in the previous books for this one. But Rafe, he is a mafia don, and in a previous book, he was supposed to marry Cleo's sister, Gemma. I think it was Gemma. And in the previous book, which was hers, she had fallen in love with someone else, and she had gotten pregnant by this person, so she wasn't a virgin, and she can't marry Rafe anymore. But the thing is, her father, like, owed him a bride. And also, because he kept him from going to prison, the FBI was out for him, he is going to give Rafe, he's making Rafe his successor, because his son doesn't want anything to really do with the business. And so, yeah. So Cleo, though, in the last book, stepped up and said, I'll marry Rafe so that you can be with, you know, the father of your baby and everything. You can go do that. And Rafe, it turns out, is thrilled by this, though of course he plays it cool, because he secretly was more fascinated by Cleo the whole time, but he's very duty driven. He has had any kind of like, you know, personal desires really kind of stamped out of him through life, which you'll see through this book. He's been through a lot of tough things with his father being an absolute turd to him. His father's dead now because he's the head of it. And he was actually very intrigued by Cleo. So when she gets offered in exchange, he's like, yes, please, I will take her. Thank you. And so he's very excited to make her his bride and to have her, because he's pretty into her and he wants her. And he thinks that it's just physical. He's like, once I have her, then she'll be my wife and I'll put her somewhere else. But of course that never happens. Now Cleo, she has agreed to this marriage to save her sister and save her shitty dad, but she is not going to submit her body to him. She's like, this can be a marriage in like name only. We don't need this to be anything more. And he's like, no, like I want to have sex with you. Like we're going to do this. And so on their wedding night, she makes him like, she tells him, if you're going to consummate this, it's going to be rape, because I'm not submitting to this. I've submitted so much of my life. I'm not submitting this. And Rafe is just like, that's a line he's not willing to cross. And so he's like, all right, I'm going to have to seduce her. How am I going to do this? I'm going to do this. So we see the games that this becomes kind of games between the two of them, where he's trying everything to win her over, and she's trying like, oh, I'm going to bankrupt him. I'm going to spend all his money. I'm going to get a dog that's going to be mean to him and chase him away. I'm going to embarrass him. Like she has all these plans to basically get him to like set her aside and decide that she's not right. But he's a very determined man to make it happen. So there was lots of games back and forth, but at the same time, she doesn't feel like, well, some people might disagree. But because of the family she came from and how no choices are hers, she didn't feel overly childish to me, even though she's trying to like get him not to want her by doing some of these things. they're very much like, well, what other power does she have, right? And the way that he responds to how she is acting out in this way is what really makes it work. Because in some other mafias, there could be the guy who's just like, I'm going to get her into submission. I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not going to let any of this happen. But the way that he reacts and the way that he's just like, I have to prove that there's nothing she can do to shake me. He takes a very like mature track to this, and it proves to her that like, wow, he actually genuinely like wants me. It isn't just a control thing for him. So yeah, there definitely were a lot of ups and downs for them. The third act of this one did have me worried. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel, but we do get a really good grovel, like a really good one. And our hero definitely goes through a really good character arc because, again, I said in the beginning of explaining this, he has had a lot of the compassion and the empathy, like literally beaten out of him in his life. And so there isn't a lot of him that is just able to love freely like he wants to. And so that's a journey that he has to go on to get there, you know? So I ended up giving it 5 stars though. It has a 3.5, 4 on the spice scale. There was some good sex, but like there was some anal and butt plugs in here, but it was mostly just like really hot sex in this one. It was good. So there you go. Look at us. I just made a weekly wrap up under 40 minutes. That's great. I mean, it was because most of them are repeats, but thank you so much for watching this. Again, make sure you check out the Etsy shop. Check out, you know, maybe you need some nerdy nuts for a family member. Check that out. I always have my discount stuff for that down below. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons and channel members for keeping me going. And I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. I will still have videos going up, but they're going to be pre-filmed ones. And we'll see you to wrap up the year in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much. Bye.